All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the regular council meeting for Wednesday, November 7th, 2018. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest regarding the items on today's agenda? Councillor Bulmer?
No.
Councillor Roth?
No.
Councillor Sefoulis?
No.
Councillor Fielding?
No.
Neither do I. We have a motion moved by Councillor Roth and seconded by Councillor Bulmer. The council receives the confidential report from council regarding personal matters of an unidentifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, chief administrative officer performance review. B, the confidential verbal report from Karen Landry, CAO clerk, regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board with respect to an appeal of the comprehensive zoning bylaw. C, confidential verbal report from Karen Landry, CAO clerk, regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and personal matters of an unidentifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, with respect to 4006 Highway 6, and that staff proceed as directed. And D, confidential report from Julio D'Antonio, Jason Doretto, Jeffrey and Spence Limited, Colin Smith, Frank Cowan Company, regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, insurance claim matters. All those in favor? That's carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor Bulmer and seconded by Councillor Roth that the minutes of the following meetings be adopted as written and distributed. Council meeting, October 3rd, 2018. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? That's carried. Is there any business arriving from those minutes? None. We have no public meetings. Communications, extending the moratorium on water bottling permits. Environmental Registry of Ontario, dated October 30th. Correspondence from the Ministry Environment and Climate Change when it was done. Councillor.
I'd like to propose a motion that we support extending the moratorium by 1 year on the proviso that the final outcome is based on science and includes results from the Guelph Hermosa Tier 3 study and the associated water quantity policies being developed by the Grand River Conservation Authority in consultation with the township.
How does everybody else feel about that? Councillor Fielding?
Thank you. Well, I think we were all anxiously awaiting, it's been a holdup for 2 years and wondering what's going to happen. It seems to me that it's taken a long time. We've discussed many times in this council that there's a lot of science already there, and particularly with matters that the township has done with our water monitoring. I don't think we can really influence one way or another. The province has made the decision, and it looks like it will definitely be a 1-year moratorium. I have always supported that it be based on science because there's so much hyperbole out there and misinformation. So I would support that part of it. I'm not sure about maybe you could read it again. Just what was it about the Tier 3?
On science includes the results of the Guelph Hermosa Township, Guelph Hermosa Township Tier 3 study and the associated water quantity policy being developed by the Grand River Conservation Authority in consultation with the township. Like our township's on this implementation committee, and the policy is going to be developed in consultation with us. So my concern is if we say arbitrarily, no, we don't want it, then the argument that they can use is, well, we're going to base it on a qualitative assessment. Like we have an item on the agenda where we ask for freedom of information, and it wasn't science-based. It was all a qualitative assessment.
Yeah.
Did anybody's wells go down or something like that?
Yeah. I would be able to concur with that, yeah.
Councillor Roth?
Yes, I would agree.
Councillor Bulmer?
Well, I don't disagree with what we're trying to talk, what the motion is speaking to, but I have some concerns when I read the actual EBR posting and the language that's in it, suggesting somehow that if the differentiating between water bottling from the source where it is now, say, if we use our local example, if Nestle's were to move 3 kilometers up the road and connect to the municipal system drawing from the same aquifer, somehow it would be magically less impact. I don't agree with that. But that's to Councillor Sepoulis's point about being science-based. But this is part of the concern I have overall with the whole discussion in the first place was this moratorium only applies to water bottling. If that was Coca-Cola, it wouldn't apply to them. That's not getting at the root of the problem. And that's my fundamental concern with the moratorium, is that it's focusing on the use, which we had someone from the ministry here, and they said they don't regulate the use. They're there to determine the impact of the water taking. And this is a moratorium based on the use, not based on the impact of the water taking. And the natural environment, in my mind, can't tell the difference between whether it's carbonated or not carbonated. So as much as I support the idea that we want to have a science-based decision, I haven't seen anything to date that suggests that the moratorium is based on science that shows that bottling water is a significantly different impact than bottling pop. And the second point is I appreciate we're mentioning the Tier 3 study that the City of Guelph did, but I think we recognize I have, myself, if not council, has concerns with, there's a 40 million litre a day hole in that study, in that model, that they didn't want to address. It may be addressed in the future, but I'm hesitant to rely on something that we're on record as saying we have some concerns about. So that's where I would stand on it. So I might not support the motion. I'd rather be silent on it. And when I went to, in the notice, there's also an opportunity to do a survey. I don't know how many of you took the opportunity to check out the survey. One question. I was hoping there'd be some greater depth survey, but yes or no is not much of a survey. But anyhow, so that's where I would stand on this particular question.
Okay, I guess I'd support the motion. I think it's important that we put in front of the ministry that the importance of this being science-based, and to go to your point about regardless of what the end use of the water is, whether it's soft drink or whether it's bottled water for consumption directly. I do have a little bit of a concern, though, about the Tier 3 study being included in it, because I'm not entirely supportive of the results of that particular analysis. The way it's worded in your proposed motion, I'm actually okay with that, but I would hope that wouldn't be the major foundation for the science. I think it's important, very important, that we actually stress this be science-based. And I do like that part of the motion, or part of the proposal. So if you'd like to make a motion, we'll see if we get a seconder.
Okay. Support extending the moratorium by 1 year on a proviso. I put the word proviso. The final outcome will be based on science and includes results from the Gulf Formosa Township Tier 3 study and the associated water quantity policy being developed by the Grand River Conservation Authority in consultation with the township.
So does somebody want to second that then? Councillor Roth? Any other discussion on it? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, and it's time for the delegation. Just a minute here. So we have a delegation here with us to talk about insurance. And do you want to introduce yourselves, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Julio D'Antonio. I'm with Jeffrey and Spence Insurance in Guelph. My colleague, Jason Doretto, works with me at the office. And with us is Colin Smith from Frank.
Can you move the microphone just a little bit closer? That's better.
All right. Is that okay? We're here today to review the annual insurance program with council. And we would like to address any questions that may arise. So everyone has a copy of the review. And so we'll leave it up to you to
Ask any questions?
let us know how detailed you want to be in the review process.
Well, I'll go around and ask for questions, but then I guess in past presentations, you have a list of potential options at the end, and we might want to discuss a couple of those specifically. So let's go around to see if we have any questions. First, Councillor Fielding.
I have no questions today.
Councillor Sepoulis.
I just ask one question for the benefit of the audience. The increase in the premium, could you sort of highlight the rationale for that?
Sure, we can go through the whole cost analysis if you'd like.
No, just the
The bottom line increase?
Yeah, liability premium, that's gone up
Okay.
considerably.
The bottom line increase to the township's premium year over year is 6.25%, with the liability premium component of that being 10% to that line of business. That is a combination of a general increase, again, with the impact of the claims history of the township from year to year.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Roth?
I have no question.
Councillor Bulmer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I had a question about, part of our coverage includes ammonia contamination. And I'm trying to think, where would, as a farmer, I can think of, the anhydrous ammonia being used as a fertilizer or something, but where would we have, how would a municipality end up causing ammonia contamination?
So I believe you're referring to the equipment breakdown policy. So generally where we see that exposure is arenas and the cooling equipment used in arenas. So if there's ammonia leak in there, it could cause a claim.
So do we have, or is our system using ammonia? Do you know?
I don't know offhand myself, but this is it's a coverage included with the
Okay.
package. Yeah, it's not specific to any one municipality.
Right.
It's just part of the general package that is under that coverage.
Okay, yeah, I could see if you were indoors, or even if you could, ours, which is partially outdoors, a leak like that outdoors would be damaging to the neighborhood, not just the staff indoors too. So, okay. The other question was, there was a mention in there about legal services, legal help by phone, telephone, legal support. Was that for staff and members of council, or was it limited to just general legal advice, or, I mean, council, I think it was covered, mentioned under the conflict of interest component. Is that something councillors could make themselves, could use for, if they had a question about when to declare or when not to declare?
That was your legal hotline.
Yeah, so that's part of our legal expense coverage. Sorry, I'm just flipping here. So there's a legal hotline. It can be used for general questions by staff or council if need be, and as well as for advice under the legal expense coverage policy as part of the township's program as well. So.
But if it had to do with if I wanted to phone it up and ask a question about, do I have a conflict of interest, is that kind of advice they give that specific?
I believe there may be other avenues for conflict of interest.
Oh, yeah.
Involved, so I don't know if offhand if this hotline would provide advice
Okay,
for that type of instance. Yeah.
okay, super, thank you.
Okay, so then if we go down to the program options, I don't know if council has any specific questions about any of those. I got two here, right? The first one's under the unmanned aerial vehicle, UAV coverage. And what it did was it thought, so we have some open spaces in the township. If some individual was to bring their own UAV there and cause some problem, are we then liable for that action?
I would say, well, I mean, there's some stipulations involved with drones and UAVs. This actual coverage is for owned
Just
UAVs
for
by
ours,
the
so it's
township.
nothing to
but-
do- okay.
Yeah, so depending on the size and type of the drone or UAV that a third party might be operating, they do have to be licensed and or have insurance. So they should be responsible for any damages or any claims that might come out of their use. So no, if it's on township property and someone else is using a drone without permission or even with permission, they should have their own coverage.
All right. And then the only other question I had was, because this has come up with some other organizations I've been involved with, is cyber liability, and we've seen municipalities have some difficulty with that. And so are you seeing a big intake of this particular option from municipalities?
Yes, so certainly, as you're all aware, there's been a few municipalities recently that were attacked by hackers and held for extortion. So the claims payouts or the costs under those were quite extensive, and municipalities, since that is a real-world example, it's kind of the first in Ontario, since this product rolled out, we have been getting more questions on cyber coverage for sure. So I can turn that over to
Yeah.
Julio.
And we have investigated pricing and availability of coverage, and we have been successful in securing some pricing and some coverage through a source that will provide that for us. So it's just a matter of proceeding with it. We're ready to go anytime.
So the types of things we've seen abound are what they call ransomware.
Yes.
And so the type of option you're talking about then would cover the payout for the ransomware or the restitution of the systems if it was possible? Or both? Both. Both? Okay. All right.
If you'd like a little bit more detail, we can expand on that, but it does cover those two items.
I think that's just something I guess every municipality needs to look at these days. And I would hope that there would be some working groups around municipalities, particularly if they're using similar providers of the same provider for systems, that they get together to try and work through some of this as well as a group. Because, you know, the municipalities I've seen affected by this aren't very big municipalities, so they have limited resources in the same way we do, right? So.
We have a couple of options in terms of suppliers of the coverage. We have found one that we feel is very suitable for the township. And if you'd like to go over the details of that, we can do that. We have it available today, if you like, or we can talk to administrative staff about it.
Yeah, okay.
I'd like to go over the
Yeah, I
details
think
if I can
so.
understand the coverage.
All right, the pricing that we've received is, now, Cowens does provide it, however, we found a source that provides a better coverage than what's available at this point through them. The premium is just under $5,000 a year,
Under, sorry?
just under $5,000.
5,000, okay.
Wow. The amount of coverage provided is up to $2 million. So I'm going to let Jason take charge here and go over some of the other coverages that are available under that program.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the first thing is just the incident response. So if there is an incident with the township, then, you know, we're going to have an incident response manager that is going to take care of you and report the claim. There's two types of coverage available. The first is the first party coverage. So if, you know, you're attacked or, you know, someone hacks your bank account and transfers money to somebody else or hacks your, you know, systems, we certainly will come up, you know, we certainly cover that. There's also, you know, crisis communication, forensic teams to come in and take a look to rebuild your system, figure out exactly what happened and how to exactly fix the problem. The extortion coverage that we already talked about, that is also included in your coverage, and then also any system damage that you have to rebuild your systems and, you know, and solve the problem back to where they were before.
Okay. Any questions? More questions, I guess, was,
Yeah, it's a question of staff. Our provider, service provider, is this an overlap with them, or would this coverage be an overlap with something they are providing as well? Would they?
Do you mean with who provides our,
e-solution.
our
E-Solutions, yeah.
OnServe?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not an overlap, but what we are getting from OnServe is some training, just in terms of how to be aware of potential risks and how to deal with those risks. But they don't offer the actual coverage component from an insurance point of view. Okay.
Anything else? Do we want to make a decision? Have township staff done any investigation on any other suppliers of this kind of insurance?
We actually use the services of our adjuster here.
Okay.
To look into.
To look into it?
Yes, so we did explore a few options, and as it's indicated, what we're recommending at this point in time for the township, based on what we can get coverage for, based on our current circumstances, is what is being put forward right at this time for council to consider.
Okay, so I'd like to move a motion that we include that as part of the premium.
Include this? Okay. Is there any other discussion? Sorry, did you want to say something? Is it
If
Bill?
you don't, I will just add that we have put it here.
Oh, it's in
with
the motion?
regarding the
Oh,
insurance
okay.
coverage.
Oh, all right. Okay.
And of course, if council didn't want to, it could.
We could have left it at.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
fair
good.
enough.
So you all right with that?
Yeah,
Yes,
fair,
yeah.
Okay, any other questions for the delegation while they're here? No? Can I have the motion then, please? I have a motion moved by Counselor Bulmer and seconded by Counselor Roth that the council receives the delegation from Julio D'Antonio, Jason Doretto, Jeffrey and Spence Limited, and Colin Smith Frank Cowan Company, presentation 2019 Municipal Insurance Program, and that the township renews the insurance coverage with the Frank Cowan Company as outlined in the 2019 Municipal Insurance Program Renewal Report for the policy term February 1st, 2019 to February 1st, 2020. And the council authorizes the purchase of cyber security insurance coverage from ABEX CFC Underwriting at an amount of $5,000 for 2019, funded from account number 0100104315 and 0100204315. Any other discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. Great, thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
We'll do a couple of things. Next delegation. Okay, back under communications, we've got item number 2, pardon me, correspondence from the Minister of Transportation dated October 15th. Now the previous Minister of Transportation. Discussion on that. Councillor Fielding?
Just as a comment, and I just was a little disconcerted by the minister's answer about the realignment of Highway 6. And I just wondered if I'm taking it the wrong way or how the rest of council felt about it, but I didn't see a great commitment there for the realignment, and it was a little disturbing to me. It sounds like it's being reviewed again.
So in fact, maybe some of the ties to why he's the previous minister, some of his on the news presentations was basically they were reviewing everything, absolutely everything. There were no sort of golden projects, and everything was under review. This went along with everything else. So it wouldn't surprise me to see that everything's under review. And I had
Just a typical answer then? That they're-
well, at this point, yes, I had spoken to Speaker Arnott about it, and he'd actually talked to MPP Skelly Donna Skelly from Hamilton, with the idea of possibly getting together with the minister to talk to him about it as well. I haven't spoken to him in a couple of weeks, though, a week and a half, I guess, since the trail opening. They had not yet arranged a meeting. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 3, Claire Maltby Secondary Plan Review. Councillor Sapoulis?
Yes, I found it's a good analysis. It highlighted some concerns with the way they're addressing the water overflow. And I'd like to move a motion the council endorse the report and that it be forwarded to the City of Guelph requesting their responses to the issues cited in the report.
Okay.
I'll second.
Councillor Fielding? Yep. Any other comments on that? Councillor Bulmer?
Yeah, just one I'd like to add to that. I agree. I'd like to see the city's response to this, but I'd like to see if we can have some quantify this level of contamination that Hardin Environmental has identified. That's the one thing I didn't see in here is any estimates of potential chloride loading. I mean, most of the concerns are here about the loading of chloride in the groundwater. And since it talks about the importance of the groundwater to our residents and the cleanliness of that groundwater to residents, it would be nice if part of our request back to the city was if they could prepare something, what I would maybe call a reasonable use policy kind of plan, which if it was a septic system, you estimate what the change in chloride loading at the property boundary would be. I think that would give our consultants something to work on and determine whether this is a significant concern or something we don't need to concern ourselves about. If we could add that to the resolution, I'd really like that we have some quantification around the potential chloride loading.
Yeah, so I guess I'd like to expand just on that, is to quantify all of the issues that are raised, because there's some significant lack of information around the water flows that they're
Yeah.
talking about into ponds and then into other ponds. So I like your suggestion, Councillor Bulmer. I think we should expand it to quantify all of the items that are
Sure.
outlined in the report, okay?
That'd be great.
Okay, so it was just amended the issues cited important, including the quantification of
Yeah.
the various elements of the issues.
Identified, yeah, okay. All right. All those in favor? That's carried. Okay, we're at 125, just a minute. So we have our next delegation. Rosalind and Ken Millard Martin with respect to Rhodes Road. So first of all, welcome. All right, you have up to 10 minutes for your delegation, and I only had 2 names here, so could you please introduce yourselves?
Yes. My name is Rosalind Millard Martin, Roz, and I'm here with Adrian O'Driscoll and Erica Rosecat, and we represent the Rhodes Road Homeowners Association. And we're here today to hopefully have a conversation and open a discussion with the council on the possibility of the township taking over the maintenance of Rhodes Road. We are finding it burdensome. We've spoken with the residents. We normally act on a consensus basis, and everybody has finally agreed that we can come here and talk to you about it. We have the authority to ask for information and to give information, not to offer direction at this point. This is still pretty much a fact-finding mission. We would like to understand completely the implications for residents before we move forward. We've met with all of the residents on the road, and we have met with Karen and with Ken and with Dawn, and they have told us that the next step is to come and speak with you here today. The next steps, as far as Dawn and Karen have indicated, would be for a survey to be completed of the road. Now, I do actually have a survey, so it would be a matter of getting someone to come out and flag it. But the road itself is pretty straightforward. It is owned by the township, and it's a standard 66-foot right-of-way, and it comes straight in off of Concession 1, so coming in towards Whistlinch Lake. Comes in for 0.6 of a kilometer, 600 meters, and then makes a right-hand turn, makes a left-hand turn, makes a right-angle turn to the left, and goes along the waterfront, and for about 400 meters. We've measured the road, and it's all on the township property. It's all on that 66-foot right-of-way. And at its narrowest point, it is 5.5 meters wide. So Dawn has told us that the bare minimum for the township is 6 meters. So there is some work to be done, and Dawn has been out to take a look at it, and I'm sure can tell you what you need to know about that. We were going to have some photos available, but that didn't happen. So suffice it to say that there is room at this point in time for vehicles to pass each other with no difficulty on the road. It's not a goat track like some of the roads in and around Whistlinch Lake, and it's less than a kilometer long. There is a small road that comes off of that, Bartels Lane. That's owned privately, and it doesn't have any bearing on this. There are 2 residents that use it. There's a right-of-way that allows them access. So we have some facts. Do you guys have the little?
We do in our package, we have a document that was sent in with the facts about Rhodes Road on it.
Yeah, just some facts about Rhodes Road. So it actually surprised a lot of the residents to find that Rhodes Road was actually owned by the township. They were under the impression that it was privately owned, and therefore our responsibility to maintain it. We've kind of talked about it being a viable road. despite we don't have photos, and we've talked about Bartel. So there are 3 of us here today. Rhodes Road is comprised of 14 full-time residents, 3 part-time, 1 property owner, and the GRCA owns property along it, although they don't use it to access anything. The residents, full-time and part-time, all contribute to the maintenance of the road. We have a meeting a couple of times a year and collect fees, and we arrange for snow plowing and gravel to be put on the road, and for it to be sort of graded. And some of us go out with shovels and chainsaws and take care of what needs to be taken care of. Although we all contribute to this, there's a document that exists, an agreement between the township and 6 of the 18 residents of the road to maintain the road. I guess there was a subdivision that happened back in the 80s, and it requires 6 of the residents to maintain the road. The majority of us, however, have no legal obligation to maintain the road. So there's a bit of confusion as to who actually is responsible. Having said that, we amicably all, at this point, simply take care of it. The issues that we do have with the maintenance of the road is, first and foremost, our lack of expertise in the area. We're not a road crew. And we're just kind of limping along as best we can and doing what we think is right. The issue of shared liability concerns us. The road, what's our responsibility when we're maintaining a property that we don't own? Township owns it, we maintain it. Some of us are obliged to maintain it, some of us aren't obliged to maintain it. So there's a real disparity in our commitment to it. Not in our commitment. We're all committed to doing it, and we do it willingly, but we aren't legally obliged to do it. We also, when we started to investigate this, discovered that we really don't have any rights to enforce anything on the road. We don't have a right to put up any signs. We don't have a right to enforce bylaws. If a kid wants to drive his dirt bike on the road without a helmet, we have no jurisdiction. There's been a couple of things happen recently. You recall a couple of summers ago, somebody stole a car in Cambridge and brought it out to Rhodes Road and torched it. And it all kind of made us think, yeah, it's really great that nothing bad happened and that the forest didn't catch on fire, but whose responsibility is it to look after this stuff? So it's becoming increasingly difficult. The costs are rising. It's difficult for us as lay people to hire the appropriate people to really maintain a road like this. And it is in pretty good shape, but we'd like to, moving forward, we'd like it to keep it that way. We want to maintain our property values, by having good accessibility. A couple of years ago, well, was it a year or two ago, that the county has actually been out to have a look at the road because we requested that we have garbage pickup. And they have been out and looked at the road and decided that it's reasonable for their trucks to come in and out safely. And so for the last year and a half, we've had garbage pickup out there. So we can show that it's at least a reasonable enough road for.
Okay, you have 2 more minutes, okay?
Was anybody keeping track? Did I say everything I was supposed to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the agreement that people signed, it was former residents. They don't even live there anymore.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
There was some legal document by a lawyer, Osner, who's long dead, God rest his soul, but, yeah, doesn't mean much here and now. Does the council have any questions?
That's what I'm going to do next. Okay, I'm just going to go around and ask if everybody has any questions.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine.
Over to you.
Counselor Fielding.
Thank you. If I could direct a question to the Director of Public Works. A little bit of background. I actually, too, was surprised to hear that it was a public road. I didn't know that. I thought all of those roads in the Pleasant Lake area were private. So you learn something every day. So the residents are talking about an agreement that was signed. Prior to that, did the township keep up the roads? Do you have any record of that, of a roads road, or?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, I do not personally have any documentation on that.
Okay, do you have some?
I can actually
knowledge on
answer
it?
that question.
Okay.
It has always been maintained by the residents. It was a seasonal road,
Okay.
because way back when Mrs. Helen Rhodes gave the road allowance to the township, everyone there was only there in the summertime, and they chose to maintain the road themselves.
Thank you. I guess I understand why and what you're asking for. The issue I see is, or need to find out, is what actually is the township's obligation if it is a public road, and what we need to do. And I guess I'd also like to find out how many other roads are like this, because obviously it could put a burden on the township if there, if 10 or 20 of them popped up. That adds a lot to, especially in the winter, maintenance. So I don't know if the CAO has anything to add to that. Or
I can add to it. I can let you know that there is the possibility that there are others out there in the Puslinch Lake area specifically. Staff is currently looking at all our roads and looking at where we have previously indicated that the roads are private based on the information available, I guess, at the time. And as matters arise, we look into it further to determine whether it is private or not. We haven't undertaken the task of looking at all the roads to make that determination, but certainly I do think it would be prudent to determine what roads are absolutely privately owned and publicly owned versus those that may be publicly owned and privately maintained based on any similar or different type of arrangement as we're dealing with here.
Yeah, I definitely would like to find that out, and I'm ending my tenure here, so for the next council, I think it's important to find that information out, and being a public road, what exactly is the township's responsibility? Because it doesn't sound like we have, like we do in some of our subdivisions, we have a written agreement that they keep up, so on and so forth. It doesn't sound, it sounds like kind of a gray area here, so I would like to ask staff to provide more direction and more information about it, and bring that back to council.
Councilor Willis.
Yes, the cost to maintain the road currently, do you have a figure that you sort of budget for on an annual basis?
To maintain our road ourselves,
Full-timers pay $600 a year approximately, and part-timers $300. So, gotta do the math.
Okay, a question for staff. With respect to this road being owned by the township, and if something did happen on it, what would be our liability?
As an owner of anything, there is liability associated with it.
Okay, I sympathize with you, but as Councillor Fielding pointed out, there are other roads in this same situation. And I'd like just to follow up with what she's asked, is we look at all unpaved roads in the township and develop a plan to look and address whether or not goes even the roads that are currently gravel roads. In other words, look at all roads, all unpaved township roads, address whether they can be paved or should stay the way they are, and on paving, looking at chip and tar versus standard, and then develop a prioritization criteria to move forward on all these roads and put it in our budget in a multi-year program. And if we have the funds, we would consider it. If we don't have the funds, well, we have to defer it. I'm sort of looking at this as a one piece of a bigger picture type of thing, rather than trying to isolate this as a one-of.
Yeah, Counselor, could I just comment on what you,
So you can respond to a question, but it's not an open dialogue here.
sorry.
Okay, sorry, but that's,
Well, that's all I have. Thank you.
Councillor Roth.
Yes, thank you. Well, really, the last thing we're looking for is more roads. But I really sympathize with your situation, and some of these old agreements are old and probably should never have been signed in the first place. So I think we have to investigate this a little further and see what we can do or can't do, and where it all fits into the big scheme of things. Like Councillor Sapula says, I think has to be taken into consideration, because we have a new asset management plan that we're putting in place, and I think we're going to be struggling to keep up our assets as it is. So I think we just have to do some more research in it for you, and I thank you for coming out today.
Okay, Councillor Bulmer.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you. You make a lot of really good points, and I can see the challenge, the position you're in, or actually the position we're in as well. We're both in the same position, but on opposite sides, I guess. I would like to move ahead on this, as part of, I don't disagree with the plan that's been laid out, but I think it needs to be clarified. I think certainly it's putting your residents in a difficult situation. One question I'd have is, does MPAC give you any acknowledgement for being on a road that you maintain? Do you get any credit for that from
No,
your
we
property
don't.
assessment?
No, we pay what everybody else pays. There is no reduction in our taxes for having to maintain our road ourselves.
I guess the other question would be is, those people that are on private roads, do they get a reduction? Does MPAC acknowledge in their valuation that they're on a private road and therefore there's a different value to the property? But you couldn't answer that because you're not on a private road.
That's a good question.
Because that's the only risk I could see, is all of a sudden, you may lose what you win on the apples, you lose on the pears, because your taxes may go up $600 a year. Once you have
It's not only financial, though. It's about
Yeah.
the expertise that we have and
Yeah.
the equipment that we have access to properly maintain the road.
Yeah, and I would be concerned if I were you about this liability issue. I really, the one thing I didn't read in the written piece, which you mentioned today, which was very powerful, was some have a legal obligation to participate and some don't. And we currently have an amicable situation there, but properties change hands, and I can see the potential for a problem down the road if people choose not to participate gladly or participate at all because they feel they have no legal obligation. And that's not a situation I'd want to see in a neighborhood like that, because it is a good place. So that's this piece that spoke to me the most today. So I'd like to see it resolved. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, yeah, when you say that it's a township road, nothing surprises me in particular around Puslinch Lake. We found out not too long ago that there was a public piece of a road at the end of a private road.
Yes.
So, as the CAO has pointed out, we go through and look at some of these, what we think is the status of the road, and then investigate it further and find out what the real status is, and then act accordingly. I also support that the township staff do some more work on not only this road, but some of the others around the lake as well, to finally establish, because they were set up as cottage roads originally, and, I'm sure we're not the only municipality that struggles with this kind of thing. Anybody where they have a cottage situation has probably got similar situations. So I'd like to see them go down the road a little bit further, maybe go through with the survey with you, what sort of costs are involved, come back to council with some sort of a report surrounding that particular item. But there's a caution too, is that, once this is clearly identified as a township road, the public has complete access to it. So it won't be just the people who live there that end up driving down the road. You know that some of the roads do have signs at the end that say that they're private roads. Now, you would not be able to put up a sign or anything like that, identifying it that way. So I'd like to see that. As to Councillor Sepoulis' idea about the rest of the gravel roads, I think it's probably more appropriate to have that in your budget discussions that'll be coming up. And I think it's probably a good avenue to pursue, but this is probably, I'd rather see that recommendation come out of your budget meetings. It's a little more generic as opposed to what our delegations are.
I don't have a problem with that, but I do have a concern that their road is not the only road that falls within.
Oh, no, I know. No.
And I would hate to zero on this, do all the necessary work on this, when there might be a more urgent road in the area as well.
Yes, and I, what I said at the beginning was I did support the idea of examining what other roads were involved in
Yes.
as well, so. So those are our comments, and I hope that you feel comfortable to continue the discussions with staff. It's not all a rosy picture, you know, there's always some downsides to it that you'll have to consider, but as Councillor Bulmer has pointed out, certainly the idea of who's responsible for looking after the work would be very clear-cut then.
Just a point of clarification, we're not looking for it being paved.
No. That's not No, I don't think that's about to happen. All right, thank you very much.
We'd settle for flat.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Just adding on.
Yep.
Mayor. I believe this is just my first step, but let me know if I'm wrong.
Okay. A motion moved by Councillor Roth and seconded by Councillor Bulmer. The council receives a delegation from Rosalind Millard Martin with respect to Rhodes Road, and that staff undertake to determine what roads are private versus public owned, and report back to council. Okay? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right, next up is Regional Waterloo Integrated Urban Water System, Cambridge East Water Supply, Class CA, Notice of Completion. Councillor Fielding, it's just a notice of completion of this.
Yeah, it's just a notice. I'm glad to see that they agree with the suggestions from the township and our hydrogeologists. So I guess it sounds like they've incorporated most of the comments. So, yeah, I don't have any further.
Councillor Spoulis?
I'm fine.
Councillor Roth?
I'm fine.
Councillor Bulmer?
Okay.
Good. Next up, Wellington Common Elements Condominium Corporation, Mini Lakes, correspondence from MF Property Management. Councillor Fielding, their wastewater report.
I'll defer to
Okay,
Councillor.
Councillor Spoulis?
I'd like to make a motion, we send a similar letter that we sent to Mill Creek identifying the issues that we've noticed in the report. Things like the nitrate level, the rotating biological contactor, TSS removals, flushing of the tile beds, and determining the source of the contamination in the monitoring wells. In other words, identify to them, we notice this, and we expect to see something in the final yearly report that addresses these.
Okay. Councillor Roth?
Yeah, I agree with that. Things seem to be getting worse than better at this facility. I don't know if it's cause for that much concern yet, but I was kind of shocked at the picture of the filter bed. And I'm sure the Ministry of Environment should be a little concerned as well. So I think Councillor Sepoulis has a good idea to do that. And the yearly report will be coming up this third quarter. So, and then our peer review consultants will be looking at it as well. So I think that's about all we can say for now.
Okay. Councillor Bulmer?
Thank you. Yeah, I share the concerns that we've heard already, and I must admit, the report identifies that this system has struggled for a period of time. What's new in this report that you don't often see from someone's own consultant is language such as alarming or unprecedented, and that hit home for me. And I recognize that since the change in the C of A to a calendar year from a rolling 12-month average for determining compliance, that we have to wait till the end of the year for that determination for those chemical parts. But I think the piece related to the tile beds is already a problem. I don't think there's any 12-month average required to determine that there's a significant problem there with the sewage effluent being seen on the surface, and the concern that there may be some disconnections or breakage of that system, which, calls into question whether the system is capable of functioning properly if we have plugged or broken components. So, in addition to what Councillor Sapoulis has suggested, I would like to, I think we need some stronger language around the parts that don't have to wait until the annual compliance report. I think we have some components here that the report suggests should be fixed immediately. And I'd like to see that we get some comfort that that's happened, if that's possible.
Okay, yeah, I support what both of you are saying here. I think certainly, as you point out, the final report will address some of the other issues, but
Yeah.
there are some issues that aren't going to change over time. And I guess the wording I'd like to see is an action plan to address some of the physical items identified with timeframes on it. That I'd like to see us correspond and leave it up to them. I remember some years ago, they had an action plan to make some improvements to the system over there, but I don't recall what the outcome of that was. I remember a lot of it hinged on getting a renewal of their approval, but I don't know whether that all got followed through on. I don't remember anything. I thought it had to do around the treatment system. I certainly don't remember anything around the tile bed in that, but I think that we need some sort of an update on these physical parameters that seem to be out of whack as well. So you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that, yeah.
Okay, so we use,
I just need a seconder.
okay, who wants a second? Councillor Fielding? All those in favor? That's carried. Okay, Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act request. So this was the request. Councillor Spoulis, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, that was very eye-opening, and to say the least, it's, as Council Bulmer said, I guess a couple of years ago when I wasn't on council, I don't think they know what they're doing. And I look at this, and all they seem to do is relying on, has any water dropped in any adjacent wells to determine the quantitative analysis. And it's very disappointing to see how the work is done. I'm hoping with this other information we get from the Tier 3 establishes some parameters, and Nestle's, of course, has done a lot of work on their side of the fence, and a more composite picture, I'm hoping, is developed for the water quantity in our area, and we have more science-based and qualitative-based analysis.
Okay. Councillor Roth?
Yeah, I agree, and it's kind of shocking when you read this, and some of the comments are that, to have the permit for 5 years, and they still make it 10 anyway, so, it makes you wonder whether your comments are even worth forwarding. So I think they do whatever they want to do, and I don't think they take into consideration the cumulative effects.
No, it's evident in that they didn't.
You wanted to add something?
I
Madam
just wanted
CAA?
to let council know that we just received a additional package documents, and we will include them on your next agenda.
Okay.
Okay?
That's the missing pages that they redacted.
I don't know.
Missing bill.
Councillor Bulmer?
Yeah, just a couple of points. Perhaps what we're seeing here is different from what we expected, because this is a combination of two existing water taking permits into one, as opposed to an expansion of a one or a new one, and perhaps there's different categories and classes and different review processes that take place. I know our consultant at Hardin Environmental, they are in the business of applying for and obtaining permits to take water for their clients. Perhaps the questions that council was looking for, we could get answered by Hardin Environmental, who's familiar with the application process and making it through the review process, and the different types of review that take place based on the different types of applications. Because I seem to recall that the decision to go down this path was to try and reverse engineer the process to understand the review that would go on for an application like Nestle's. But I'm concerned this one is so significantly different from what Nestle's is doing that any reverse engineering we did on it might not be as revealing as we might have hoped. So. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just going to go to Councillor Fielding first. Councillor Fielding, did you want?
No, I don't have any additional comments.
Councillor Willis?
Yeah, well, my understanding is every time the permit to take water is renewed, you have to go back to first principles. Okay, and when you go first principles, you apply all the criteria again. You look at things like cumulative effect. So what this tells me is
They don't.
they didn't do that,
They didn't do that.
and they don't do that. So it doesn't matter if you have a new or whatever. First analysis is not going to be scientific, and I'm hoping with this. Results of this Tier 3 and Nestle's information that they get more scientific based analysis in the future, because this is going to be of concern to us, especially in the drought period. You know, you're going to have to start limiting water takings in the drought period.
Okay, so it's sort of summed up to me, if you go down to page 129 in the package, in the handwriting that's down the right-hand side, the length of a permit is considered carefully, or case by case. Shorter permits issued when some uncertainty exists. Where the taking is existing long-term, a 10-year is appropriate, particularly if there's ongoing monitoring and reporting. So I presume, based on that logic, Nestle's will simply get a 10-year permit.
Yeah.
Because that's basically what they're saying. If
That's
you've
what
been
it
doing
says.
this for a long time, you've got all the monitoring behind it, that's all we need. That's all the science that they're really considering. So I was pretty unhappy when I read that. Okay. Next up, Grand River Conservation Authority bylaw, correspondence dated October 29th, 2018. Questions on that? And the Puslinch representative of the Hamilton Conservation Authority, we have that letter, Councillor Fielding, about extending that.
Yeah, I had a comment
add something
first.
to it?
Yeah, I spoke with the CAO just before, and it appears that the township will not be appointing committees until January. So I was wondering if we could make it until the end of January.
She's updated.
Oh, you've
this,
updated
yeah.
it. Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
she's
you didn't tell
updated
me
the thing here.
that.
Sorry, I just did it.
Oh, okay.
I thought the same thing when she said, we're planning to have this
Yeah,
meeting, and
but
I'm thinking, well, what if it doesn't happen?
Yeah, and it's not going to apparently, so, okay.
Yeah.
It would just help them out at conservation
Yeah,
if they had somebody, yeah, because the chair is definitely leaving, so.
Well, you'd mentioned before that there was some. Okay, I have a motion then moved by Councillor Routh and seconded by Councillor Bulmer that council hereby extends the appointment of Councillor Susan Fielding to the Hamilton Conservation Authority to January 31st, 2019. All those in favor? That's carried.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, there were no intergovernmental affairs this week. And Puslinch Fire and Rescue Services, the County Fire Training Officers Report. Are you going to come up and talk about, oh, there he is. I didn't see him in the gallery. He's hiding back there. Welcome.
Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Your worship and members of council, I'd like to introduce Charles Hamilton. He's our Wellington County Fire Training Officer. I'm just here to support him today. It was his report that you received, and I'm also here to answer any questions that might be specific to Puslinch.
Okay. Do you want to say anything first, or you just want to go to questions?
I guess just introduce myself. I actually came from Erin Township, was the chief training officer there. The position became open in the county, and I've assumed that. My former, the guy who taken this, he's now a deputy chief at Center Wellington. So interesting job, and
Yes.
appreciate the support from your councils.
Okay. All right, Councillor Fielding.
Thank
Questions or
you.
comments on this?
No, I don't think I have any. It's good to see the things that you're proposing, and I think it'll be a bonus for us in Puslinch that it's a county-wide initiative, and it
Correct.
will help the smaller municipalities with, I'm sure, Chief Gomez knows that, is it Gomes or Gomez? Gomes, sorry, Louis. I'll just call you Louis, it's easier. Chief Louis will appreciate it not being all on the smaller chair, so that's great, Charles. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Sabulis?
I don't have a question specifically of you, but of our chief. Are you satisfied with what's in here? Would you like to see anything more or less?
I'm satisfied with the report in terms of when the report was produced. So there has been some legislative changes already. They repealed the new regulation that was proposed for the Fire Protection and Prevention Act in regards to firefighter training certification. So I do like the fact that we're still moving forward with a lot of the training that was proposed, because as a fire service, as a whole, I think it's great that we're heading in that direction. So I do foresee, and through discussions with other chiefs, that legislation will return. The legislation was good, it was just the implementation of that legislation that needed to be corrected or amended. So it's good that we're progressing forward, so yes, I am very happy with the report and the work that Charles has been doing so far.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Roth?
Thank you. I think it's a very good report. It's nice to see how up to speed we are on our training. I just have a question as far as the driver training portion.
Okay.
And I guess this would be for Chief Gomes, but how many of our firefighters are qualified to drive our equipment?
The majority of them are. We do make it a requirement that within the first year of employment, they get their DZ license on their own. So we've been managing that fairly good here in the township of Puslinch. But this is something that all the municipalities in Wellington County see a lot of value in, because not all municipalities have the same requirements as we do here in Puslinch. The other component that I really like about it is that when it comes to license renewals, that we will be there to assist them. And the driver training is very thorough, that they are proposing with, I think, about 20 hours of practical driving. And there's huge value in that, just for the safety of our firefighters and the citizens of our community.
Just maybe to add to that, part of the reason for doing it is, you've probably heard that AZ licenses, they've changed the way those licenses will be issued. They're going to do the same thing with DZs. You can't really just go and rent a truck and then go and take your license anymore. You need to go to, I'm not sure which schools, but there may be 3 in the province that will be certified to issue DZ licenses. So we're going to see fewer recruits come to us with DZ licenses. So it's kind of preempting that we have that ability internally to grant licenses and do license approvals. Now, it'll only be for the fire department. We're not going to do anything outside of that. It's fire department specific for Wellington County.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bulmer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. Welcome to Puslinch. I'm also interested and really pleased to see this thing about the driver training or licensing. And I read in there that, you know, this will allow you to, when they get their license, to drive any fire truck in the county, sort of thing. But it made me think of when I got my D license, you know, eons ago, on a single axle dump truck, and the next day I could have gone out and driven a tandem, a triaxle. By the end of that first year, I was driving a triaxle and a tandem and pulling floats with loads on them and even tankers, and each one of them was so different. And I thought I would have benefited, particularly when you go from a hydraulic truck, brake truck, to an air brake truck, from a little additional training on each vehicle when you go from, because they're not all the same, they don't all behave the same. And I was wondering, is this program going to have some, I saw some talk about operating the apparatus in terms of what's on the back, but is there going to be some additional training so that if you learn to drive the rescue truck, that there's going to be some difference when you drive a tanker? There's going to be a difference in driving a tanker to the rescue truck? That kind of training level?
Yeah, I think that in general, I think for most of our fire departments, there is going to be an internal driver program. So we get a new vehicle. It doesn't mean that every driver is qualified to drive that. There is going to be some additional training. You're absolutely right. A tanker is different than a rescue, is different than a pumper, is different from an aerial. So there is some specific training that would need to be aimed at each driver that's qualified to operate our apparatus in a fire department. So that's kind of an individual thing that the departments need to take care of. This program here is really just to get a firefighter from no DZ to a qualified DZ, recognized through the MTO and having a license.
That's super, because I know for me the biggest shock when the Z ticket, basically all I got out of that was don't touch them, like they'll kill you if you take them apart. But it took time to learn how to operate the vehicle with air brakes. That was the biggest change. And I don't know how many of the guys, that'll be part of this too, I guess, that they'll have a chance to practice that before they're going live with adrenaline running and on the road.
In general, it would be like a new piece of equipment comes out, yeah, you've got some drivers, but if you had like newer individuals showing up, they might not drive to an emergency call immediately, but they could drive back. So they're getting experience with the vehicle under a situation where it's, it's not a, life and death, something hanging on the line, but they're getting some experience driving the vehicle back. And at any time, they could raise their hand and say, yeah, I want more training, and I'm sure that, Louis is on board with that, a captain or a driving instructor that you have on staff would be more than willing to take an individual out and give them more hours or more seat time in the vehicle.
Thank you, because this is about longevity of the vehicle too, and
Correct, yeah.
and maintenance and everything. So thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks for the report. I've been a supporter of this program, the county supported training officer program, since it was proposed many years ago now. And I'm really happy to see the way it's developed over the years. In particular, one of the items that you have under here about major projects, about the 2-year county training projection, the training plan. And I worked with a sales manager years ago, and he often said that those without a plan are planning to fail. So I really like to see this sort of long-range planning, these kinds of proposals going into the future, taking all of these changes, because we don't have control of all the changes. The province decides to change the certification program. So I'm glad to hear that you feel that it's just sort of on hold maybe, and rework the implementation of it, because I agree, having firefighters certified is imperative, quite frankly. We have to be confident that we're not sending somebody into a situation they're not qualified to be in. So I'm very happy to see the training officer position countywide. I'm happy to see the way this is all rolled out, and I particularly like the idea of the DZ training. Now, just the comment you made, though, that somebody couldn't go out and rent a truck and then go apply for their license, that there may only be a few schools to go to, but we would still be qualified as one of the,
Correct,
okay.
yeah. It just limits you can either bring us a license from one of those, like, the ministry is only going to recognize those particular schools as being the impetus to get your DZ, and maybe through a community college. I'm not the expert in that, but that's my understanding of it. But we would be basically the school for our county to grant licenses to drive the apparatus.
And probably some restriction on it that we keep it internal.
Yeah, we wouldn't be doing it for Public Works. It's nobody from the outside. We don't want to be bound up by somebody else's CVR. It's like a driving record for your works. I'm not saying they're bad drivers or anything like that, but they have more propensity to have, incidents on the road. I'm not saying we couldn't with a, fire truck, but it's really just fire department driven training and certification.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
A motion moved by Councillor Bulmer and seconded by Councillor Roth that council receives the Wellington County Fire Training Officers Report for January to September 2018 for information. All those in favor? That's carried. Thanks again.
Thank you.
A motion moved by Councillor Roth and seconded by Councillor Bulmer. The council does hereby authorize the applications for cancellation, reduction, or refund of taxes. Chapter 25, Section 357 or 358 of the Municipal Act 2001 as follows. Year 2017, application 0118, roll 2-0-2000, write-off $24.91. 2018, 0218, 2-0-2000, $269.20. 2018, 0618, 3-16800, $6.83. 2018, 07/18, 3-16800, $13.37. 2018, 0818, 3-16800, $11.37. 2018, 0518, 3-21800, $756.75. 2017, 03/18, 6-00800, $409.38. And 2018, 04/18, 6-00800, $1,242.88. All those in favor? That's carried. Planning and Building. holding removal, rezoning application, Mini Lakes Residents Association. I have a motion moved by Counselor Sapulis and seconded by Counselor Fielding. The report PD 2018-009 regarding the holding removal, rezoning application, Mini Lakes Residents Association, Lot 18, 44 Jasper Heights, private, Lot 157, 1 Trillium Beach, private, and Lot 226, 18 Olympia Avenue, private, file number D14/MIN, Part Lot 21, Concession 8, Plan 61 M203, formerly municipally known as 7541 Wellington Road 34. Township be received and the council authorize the request to remove the holding H1 provision from zoning bylaw 19/85 as amended for Lot 18, 44 Jasper Heights private, Lot 157, 1 Trillium Beach private, and Lot 226, 18 Olympia Avenue private on the lands described as Part Lot 21, Concession 8, Plan 61 M203, formerly municipally known as 7541 Wellington Road 34 be approved, and the council directs staff to prepare the bylaw to authorize the removal of the holding H1 provision. Any discussion on this? Councillor Bulmer?
Yeah, I guess I'm wrestling with this in light of that report we saw, and I recognize that we do have to wait to the end of the year for the chemical performance requirements, but I am concerned that we have the failed, what appears to be what the report suggests is a non-working tile bed with possible breakage or disconnections. And I try to put this in context. If this was a private lot connected to a private septic, and it had a failed system, I don't know if we'd give an occupancy permit. But I don't know if we have the same criteria here beyond the holding zone from the building department. I don't know what is the checks and balances that we, to control how many new places connect to it if it's not working. And I don't have an issue with lifting this once we see those tile beds repaired. This is not a hold forever, but I prefer this deferred until we saw that tile bed issue resolved.
Did you want to respond to that?
I can advise council that seeing the results of the quarterly report and also knowing that we were to get comments from the township's engineers with respect to the lifting of the holding, that the township's engineers did advise that they still had no objection to the lifting of the holding on this particular matter.
Okay. When I looked at the report, it seemed to me that the county, she's here. The requirement was that the system be in place. There was no definition of how the system functioned. So to me, it's fallen within the regulations of what they needed to operate by. I would still expect that they're going to follow up on the issues we raised earlier and go ahead with that. So I'm okay with this, the way it sits now. We can ask the rest of councillors how they feel about it. Councillor Fielding?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I'm fine.
Councillor Rowe. So I think, I understand your point, Councillor, but I think that we've almost got two parallel things happening, and I think they'll probably both be resolved at the same time.
And I can accept that. I was struggling with what the process would be for another septic system, and I wasn't able to speak to the building official to resolve that in my own mind. And it isn't that I'm trying to be punitive to the new residents, but at the same time, I'm concerned about the well-being of these new people. Are they aware of the situation that they're entering as well? It's both adding new units and making sure the people that are adding those new units are aware of what they're connecting to, of their obligations. I guess if this had to come in a different order,
it wouldn't have been.
It wouldn't have been an issue. It just happened to land at the same time, and that's so. I'm not going to make a fuss about it. I just indicating my struggle.
Sure, I understand.
He's also here, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All those in favor? That's carried. And next, we have the building monthly report. I have a motion moved by Councillor Fielding and seconded by Councillor Sapulis. The report BLDG-2018-003 with respect to the building department monthly update September 2018 be received for information. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? That's carried. We have nothing under roads and parks, recreation, no mayor's updates, any notices of motion? Committee minutes, the Heritage Committee. more than that. Okay, I have a motion moved by Councillor Sabulis and seconded by Councillor Fielding that council receives the following committee minutes: June 4th, 2018 Heritage Committee, the June 13th, 2018 Recreation Committee, September 11th, 2018 Planning and Development Advisory Committee, and the September 18th, 2018 Recreation Committee. Any discussion on any of those? All those in favor? That's carried. Municipal announcements. Councillor Fielding.
I don't have any today, thank you.
Hey, Councillor Spillis.
Just one, I guess two, attended the Remembrance Day ceremony at London County Museum the other day. It was held inside, fortunately. The weather was inclement outside, but it was a sombering ceremony. The other thing announced is Brantford Conservation Authority has indicated they have trees, potted trees available for sale for those residents who are interested in purchasing it. It's not like ours, it's potted and it's
Bigger.
bigger and more years of growth. So if you're interested, go on the website and place your order.
Okay. Councillor Roth.
I have nothing.
Councillor Bulmer.
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, just a couple of quick things. The Warden's tree planting was a huge success. Maybe someday it'll be back in Puslinch. Find someplace for it. Just a reminder that the household hazardous waste depot is at the transfer station this month, so it's there all month. Also a reminder that Remembrance Day is on Sunday. The Optimist will be holding that event, and it starts at 10 o'clock because it's on a Sunday. And the event that Councillor Sapoulis talked about at Aboyne on Monday, I just wanted to, Karen Wagner, who's the archivist up there, we had some correspondence relating to some of the names because I read out the names. We don't have it's the Legion members who do it, but we don't have a Legion in Puslinch. But there's a couple of dates here, and I thought this was particularly interesting, because of the time. And I'd just like to read them out to council, and then I have a request for the next council. So for this, the first one's from the Fergus News Record, the 19th of June, 1919. And it says, Puslinch Township will erect a soldier memorial. At a largely attended meeting of residents of Puslinch Township held at the Town Hall in Aberfoyle, it was decided to accept the offer of a Kitchener firm to erect a granite memorial to the soldiers from Puslinch Township who made the supreme sacrifice on the field of Flanders in France. The design chosen is a massive pedestal with a figure of a Canadian soldier on top and promises to be a very artistic monument. The offer of a site for the memorial at Puslinch Lake, made by the City Council of Guelph, was turned down, and the monument will be erected on a hill in the center of the fairgrounds at Aberfoyle, that being considered the most suitable and appropriate place. Another motion that was carried, and which shows the people of Puslinch Township appreciate service rendered by their soldier sons, was to present every returned soldier with a gold watch. There are about 100 men who will receive the gift.
Whoa.
Then the next one is from June 10th, 1920. Puslinch erects the monument to fallen soldiers. The monument erected by Puslinch Township to commemorate the soldiers from the community who have been killed in the Great War was unveiled at Aberfoyle on June 3rd. The ceremony being conducted by Ms. Buckland, MPP, the Member of Legislature for South Wellington. The monument is a very handsome and substantial one. It's built of solid granite, stands about 20 feet high from the bottom of the base to the top of figure at the top, and is erected on a rising piece of ground almost in the center of the fairgrounds at Aberfoyle and faces the road. It is an imposing structure and a credit alike to the citizens of the township and the manufacturers. It contains the names of several young men of Puslinch Township who made the supreme sacrifice. So I'd really like to see, because it's going to be the 100th anniversary of it's the 100th anniversary of the ending of the war. This June will be the 100th anniversary of the decision to do it. But on the 100th anniversary of the erection of that thing, which will take place on June 3rd, 2020, I'd like to see the new council do something to recognize that event when it occurs in a year and a half. I think it would be very fitting to the background. And certainly, it was a surprise to understand that the city of Guelph somehow was involved in housing something at Puslinch Lake. That sort of caught me by surprise. And that was why I thought it would be interesting to read it out. So those are my comments.
If I could, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
perhaps I'd like to see those two pieces of correspondence shared with the Heritage Committee for their meeting in December.
Absolutely, I'll pass it
And
on.
with your recommendation attached.
I'd be happy to.
That's very thoughtful.
Okay, bylaws. Yeah, let me take a drink here. Yes, Councilor.
With respect to the bylaws, I'd like to ask that item D be referred back to staff.
How about we break it out and treat it separately first?
Fair
okay?
enough.
So I'll skip all the ones, but I'll read the ones out except for D. So a motion moved by Councillor Fielding and seconded by Councillor Sepoulis that the following bylaws be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. A bylaw to permit the municipality to impose fees and charges with respect to services or activities provided, related costs payable, and for the use of its property, and to repeal bylaw 075-2017. B, a bylaw respecting building, demolition, conditional, change of use, and occupancy permits, payment of fees, inspections, appointment of inspectors, and code of conduct, which repeals bylaw number 42/05 as amended. C, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 19/85 as amended, being a zoning bylaw of the Township of Puslinch, part lots 11 and 12, concession 4, D14 Cox. E, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 19/85 as amended, being the zoning bylaw of the Township of Puslinch, part lot 5, concession Gore, D14 ODE, with no further notice being required. F, bylaw to amend bylaw number 19/85 as amended, being the zoning bylaw of the Township of Puslinch to remove the holding symbol for Lot 18 of Mini Lakes Residents Association. G, bylaw to amend bylaw number 19/85 as amended, being the zoning bylaw of the Township of Puslinch to remove the holding symbol for Lot 157 of the Mini Lakes Residents Association. H, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 19/85 as amended, being the zoning bylaw of the Township of Puslinch to remove the holding symbol for Lot 226 of the Mini Lakes Residents Association. And I, being a bylaw to authorize the entering into an agreement with Nestle Waters Canada monitoring wells. So, any discussion on all of the ones with the exception of D?
Just me?
Yes, okay.
Please. I just wanted to make a note, just for council's information and for the public's information, bylaw, the Odell bylaw, it's E. I just wanted to let you know that there was an update made to the website with respect to making sure that it was the updated bylaw that was posted, and it was also given to members of council.
we received
And I just
that.
want to make sure council is aware of that minor change. I won't go ahead and
Okay.
read what the changes are, just want to make sure that everyone was
Yep.
aware. Okay, thank you.
All right, so anything other than bylaw D? All those in favor? That's carried. Bylaw number D, then, Councillor, you've got a concern?
Councillor Roth and I met with Mr. Doughty outside at lunch break, and at the last council meeting, when we discussed this matter, we voted on the bylaw, which basically said that there should be only a one-story building. Mr. Doughty was not at the meeting, his agent was. There must have been some miscommunication between his agent and himself, and Mr. Doughty would like to see us give consideration to a two-story house as opposed to a one-story house. So I'd like to ask that this matter be referred back to staff for discussion.
For consideration.
For consideration. And given Mr. Doughty has also indicated there is a time constraint, he has an offer on the property if this matter could be brought back before the end of the year for ultimate resolution.
Any other comments on that? So, you're moving a motion on this? are
Yes,
you?
I am.
And who is the seconder on the rest? Oh, actually, Councillor Fielding, you moved the original motion. and
Oh,
Councillor
okay,
Sepoulis-
I'll
So you
second.
okay with the two of you staying as a mover and seconder? Any other comments on that? Councillor Bowman?
Yeah, I seem to recall something in the staff report that a second story with sealed windows was supposed to be an option in this. Is that what we're concerned about? Is that
The way I recall it was that the zoning determined that, and any other proposed change would have to be backed up by a further study that indicated that it would still meet the requirements. Oh. That's, but I don't want us to go by my memory.
No,
I think it's better if we
understood, yeah.
refer it back to staff.
Just,
Yeah.
okay.
And I recall asking the agent specifically whether the owner was satisfied with the one story, and
Yes.
and obviously there's some miscommunication.
So if we can maybe ask that receive some priority, well, we ask the county to,
I will certainly work
Sign
with the
some
county to
priority
ask
for
that that receives some priority.
please. Okay, then all those in favor on that one? Okay. So I'll sign this, but you can have to
I
make a
will-
note
I
in there
will,
that said
yes.
that one was referred back. Okay. Confirmed.
Sorry.
I have a motion moved by Counselor Spoulis and seconded by Counselor Fielding that council bylaw, the following bylaw be taken as read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 065-2018 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council for the corporation of the Township of Puslinch at its meeting held on the 7th day of November, 2018. All those in favor? That's carried. And we have a motion moved by Counselor Fielding and seconded by Counselor Spoulis. The council hereby adjourns at 2:25 PM. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you.
Welcome if you got them.